and welcome to Module 7. This is an important module because this is the week that you turn in your project final, um, and we'll talk specifically about what that includes in a couple of minutes. First of all, the learning objectives this week are kind of misleading. It's as though we're still in the process of doing these things when actually we're finishing them up, so you can kind of ignore those. What you will learn about in Module 7 is kind of a repeat of those same misleading objectives. So again, you can kind of ignore those. So we're going to glance at the module at a glance. And again, this is a path through the module. First, read the Module 7 guide, review the required resources, review your instructor's feedback from last week's assignments as it becomes available, and that's available now. Complete and submit the project, and if you have questions, be sure and post them to the general questions discussion. Those are pretty standard steps. So we'll move on to the module at a glance. And this, I'm going to take a few minutes to go over this in some detail, but I want to draw your attention first to a couple things in the announcement for this week. This is the Module 7 announcement. I'll be sending a letter on Monday of this week to remind you of what is actually due in the project final. And here are some steps that are important to follow before you do anything in Module 7. Number 1, carefully read all grading feedback on 3-1 collection of sources. There is feedback in the grading rubric, in the summative comment in the grading rubric, and on the Turnitin version of the draft. Why do you need to read those? Because the expectation for the final project, 7-1, is that you'll be revising 3-1, and I had given you feedback to help you do that. Number 2, carefully read all grading feedback on the 5-1 draft. There's feedback in the grading rubric, in the summative comment, in the grading rubric, and on the Turnitin version of the draft, so be sure you check all three places. There are specific suggestions included for large-scale revision in that feedback. You'll want to address all of those issues before beginning work on any small-scale revisions. And then a note that's highlighted, if you don't know how to access grading feedback, which hopefully by now you do, because I hope that you've been accessing the grading feedback all along, you can click on Help at the top of the course webpage, then click on Student Tutorial Videos, then SNHU Learning Environment, Feedback, and Grades. Number 3, review the following so you'll know exactly what you need to complete by next Sunday. Assignment 7-1 guidelines and rubric, and we'll be doing that as part of our process today. Okay, so let's take a closer look at the Module 7 guide and continuing revisions. The first question is, why are we doing more revision? Didn't we just do some revision, and why is it important to do? And the first paragraph actually answers that. Drafting is only one step in the writing process, and it is often a small one compared with revision. Draw from the feedback of your peers and instructor. Also work through the checklist of resources and revision steps. Good writing happens through revision, so the more time you spend on your writing between your initial draft and your final draft, the stronger the final version will be. If you start to get overwhelmed by the revision process, try taking a few minutes or even a few days away from your draft. When you return, work on addressing one aspect of revision at a time. You can use the persuasive essay checklist for guidance, and we'll look at that under resources. For additional revision, consider the following extra tips, and I think these are really helpful because they're specific and address the areas of the final essay that are large-scale issues that you need to address first. Number 1, to check your focus, consider verifying that the first sentence of every paragraph offers one specific point in support of your thesis. The first sentence is the topic sentence, so it should be the sentence that clearly identifies the focus of that paragraph. There were sample topic sentences in the sample persuasive essay outline that was included in the Module 5 announcement. And for those of you who were having some difficulty with topic sentences or effective topic sentences in the draft, I referred you back to that for some examples. It's important that you have those to tie everything together, that unity begins with a thesis statement and the stance that you take in the thesis, as well as the list of key points. It's continued through the topic sentences and the use of concluding sentences. Those all work together to create strong and consistent focus throughout your essay. To check your body paragraph organization, ensure that each sentence in the body paragraph directly supports or clarifies your topic sentence. Be willing to revise or remove any sentence that doesn't fit or that doesn't clearly connect back to the topic sentence of that paragraph. There will be a video in the resources that will help you use a reverse outline, which is a tool that you can use to make sure that you've got consistent unity and focus throughout the essay and with individual body paragraphs. The next one, to check your essay's overall organization, again, create a reverse outline and double check that the structure of your essay matches your outline. Your outline should clearly lay out your thesis and points. This module's resources contain a video with more information about the reverse outline strategy. Next, to check content, ensure that each body paragraph has at least one compelling quote or paraphrase from your sources, and that you then explain how these quotes support your key point. The sources are there to support the writer's ideas, not to take their place or overwhelm them. That's really important to remember. The function of the including research, which is required in each body paragraph, is to support the overall position that you're taking in the thesis, support the key point for that particular body paragraph, but it's only what do I want to say? It's only a support for your discussion, your explanation of how those quotes support your key point. That's the most important part of the paragraph, is you explaining how the quotes or paraphrase support your key point. The sources are only there to support you. It's you making the argument. The next one, remember to check your formatting. There will be a video included in the resources this week that will help you do that. And then the others are self-explanatory, so we will move on. And the next thing is the resources page. The first is the essay revision checklist, and this is a little handout, and I encourage you to print this out and actually use it as you're doing your revisions. Read through it first so that you know what things you're supposed to cover, and then read through it after you've done what you think are the needed revisions, double checking to make sure that you have addressed everything. Notice that this is broken down into categories: research, content, organization, focus, audience, and then when you've completed the work on all of those, only then can you do small-scale revisions. So each of the categories, each of the criteria breaks it down and asks you questions. Have you accomplished this in order to have effective research inclusion? Have you accomplished this to have the content the way that it's assigned and required? Is it organized? Is it focused? Have you addressed your audience, and do you have awareness of your audience in your delivery? So these are questions that are very helpful in ensuring that you have met the requirements of the assignment, that you've written the most effective, persuasive essay supported by research that you can. And again, I do encourage you to print that out so you have it on your desk beside you as you're working. The next is a video. It's called Revision Strategies, and it's a short video. It's only 3:27, and it covers several areas that you can use in doing your revisions. I always like when there are videos because it helps you visualize better what you're doing. It includes a description of using the reverse outline. I think that's a really handy tool. We think that everything is focused and organized But is it really? And the reverse outline tool helps you to ensure that that's actually happening because you're going back and you're charting um, everything in your essay, making sure that it all ties together, that it is all focused, that it's all pulling in the same direction in order to support the position that you've taken in your thesis statement. So that's a very helpful video. And then the second video, how to format papers in APA, is a longer video, but it shows you step by step how to format your final essay. And that is a requirement. It wasn't necessarily a requirement in the drafts, but the majority of students didn't have a title page, for example. They didn't have a list at the end that was of the research that was in correct format or contained the correct content. That's a requirement for the final essay. Also, it needs to follow the what to submit information. It needs to be double spaced, Times New Roman size 12. It needs to have 1-inch margins. All those are requirements of the assignment. Points will be deducted if you don't meet those requirements. So be sure that you review the how to format papers. I suggest that you use it to actually do it step by step. You can pause the video, do the action, um, start the video again, do the next step. That way you're ensured of having all the information that you need as you're actually doing it. If you have any questions or need additional information, you can certainly use academic support. They have some good handouts and videos there as well. And then the final video is under additional support optional, and it's about assignment guidelines and rubrics. And it actually, I'm not sure if this was included early in the course, but it gives you just reminders of how the guidelines are to be used and in partnership with the rubrics. And we're going to go over the guidelines and rubrics for assignment 7-1 pretty carefully. All right, so next we have the assignment. And as always, we click on guidelines and rubric. And the first thing to note is that there are two parts to assignment 7-1. If you don't turn in both parts in a single Word document, you're going to miss out on points. If you don't turn in part 1, your final point total for assignment 7-1 can be reduced by 45%, and that's a significant amount when the total assignment points that you're eligible for are 250. So it's very important that you turn in both part 1 and part 2. Those do need to be in a single Word document, one after the other. For part 1, I'm reading through the directions now. For part 1, you'll list the resources you will use in your persuasive essay. You'll also include a description of each source, information about your research process. Please note that the information in part 1 must be included in your submission and is in addition to the references section that will appear at the end of your paper. This is basically assignment 3-1 revised. I gave you revision suggestions when I graded 3-1, knowing that you were going to be revising for part 1 of assignment 7-1. So I have given you specific things to help you revise and make that a more accurate, more complete collection of sources. Two things to think about. One, if you've changed your research since you did 3-1, you'll need to update 3-1, the revised version for part 1 of 7-1. Because the collection of sources should accurately reflect what you include in your final essay. So if you switched out anything, added, subtracted anything, then you'll need to update your revision of 3-1 for the final essay. Also, the majority of students in the original 3-1 under assessment of credibility didn't do a complete assessment. Instead, they only addressed parts. So I have provided you with a link in my feedback for 3-1 that gives you information about what a complete assessment should include. So be sure that you take a look at that because that's usually the #1 area that students are missing points because they haven't given a full assessment of credibility. All right. And then for part two, you'll be writing the essay, which is a revision of your draft. And we'll look at specifics when we get to part two. All right. So for part one, collection of sources, you will be aware that this is just a repeat of the information that was with the original assignment 3-1. You're providing information on purpose, research question, biased sources, diverse perspectives, relevant sources, and supports. Those are the categories that you'll find in the grading rubric as well. I included a template that you can use for organizing 3-1 or the revised version for 7-1 in the Module 3 announcement. Um, Not very many people used it. It was helpful in making sure that you included everything that was being asked for. It also gave you an easy way to organize the information as you're moving from 1 to 6. So you might want to go back and take a look at that and consider using it as you make your revisions for the final 7-1. Then we have part two, the persuasive essay with research. Um, Basically, you're revising your draft, and for some people that will be minimal revision, but for others it will be significant revision. So it's very important that the first thing you do, as I noted in the announcement, is you go back and review the grading feedback. I really encourage you to do that as soon as possible, as early in the week as possible, because again, some people have significant amounts of research that need to be done, where they're having to go back and change significant parts of the essay in order to make it an effective essay that meets the assignment requirements. So please start by reviewing the grading feedback that I provided. Again, you'll notice that the specifics that you have to address are, in fact, in the rubric criteria: thesis statement, key points, quotes or paraphrases, strategies, persuasive writing techniques, and attribution conventions or citation conventions. Those, again, will all appear in the grading rubric that we'll look at next. By now, you should have a good sense of what's required for each of those categories, each of the 6 categories. I've given specific feedback in most cases, on all of these. It's important to recognize that my feedback is focused on 2 things: letting you know what's working well and also what still needs work. If things are working well, then you can leave them alone. They're already effective. They're doing their job. If things still need work, then they need to revision. They need to use the revision suggestions that I made, along with any links or supporting materials that I've suggested you use in order to make those work more effectively. It's not a question of going through the grading feedback and checking off things, because I prioritize. I give the most information, most revision suggestions on things that are major issues, large scale issues. I'm not proofreading by any means. That's your job. I'm not going through and looking at commas and periods unless it's a major issue. It causes misunderstanding of the essay. What I'm looking at are large scale issues like the 6 that are listed here and will be listed in the rubric. I'm making suggestions based on asking you to think about how this can work better, suggesting that you look back at templates, suggesting that you review readings on arguments if you haven't made an argument. Sometimes people focus on problem solving when they think they're doing persuasion, but they're actually not. They're doing problem solving. So I've made some suggestions, given you some references to review in order to help you better meet the requirements of the assignment. But again, I prioritize, so it doesn't mean that just because you do the things that I've suggested that you're going to get an A. The final responsibility falls on your shoulders to make sure that you're meeting all the requirements, all the needs of the assignment. Be sure that you look at the what to submit information. Things need to be double spaced. They need to be formatted correctly, right margins, meet the length requirements. Those are not optional, and they will lose you points. More importantly, we're teaching you how to present papers in future courses where you're using APA formatting correctly. You are paying attention to what to submit instructions. Every assignment in future courses at SNHU will include what to submit instructions. An important thing to pay attention to here is the requirement for research. You have to use at least one source from the project resources document and then two sources from your own research in the Shapiro Library. That's the minimum requirement. You have to meet that as a minimum. All right, let's take a quick look at the, well, not a quick look, an extensive look at the project rubric. Um, First of all, it's important that you recognize that this rubric is different from the original rubric for 3-1 or the original rubric for 5-1, the draft. There has been a column added, and that column is exceeds expectations. There'll be some things that you either do it or you don't, so the exceeds expectations isn't taken into consideration. But you'll notice that the majority of the criteria now have an exceeds expectations column. What does this mean to you? Well, basically what it means is that the draft that you turned in or the original version of your collection of sources, if those were turned in again with no revisions made, no changes made, you might be assuming that you would earn the same grades that you originally earned on 3-1 and 5-1, the draft. That would not be true because now there is the exceeds expectations column. Also, this time, the two assignments are being graded in the same rubric. So the total points is the combined between the two different parts. The collection of sources revised, the draft revised. So that makes a difference in the total points that you're eligible to earn. If you decide not to do any revision on your collection of sources, that can bring down your total grade. Um, you need to revise both parts in order to earn as many points as possible, and also to demonstrate that you have learned and practiced the skills that have been focused on in this course. All right, let's take a look at how things change because of the exceeds expectations. I've always told you to read the column that's meets expectations, read the descriptive material in that column in order to double check that you're providing the best quality that you can and meeting the expectations for the assignment in terms of requirement, purpose, etc. But now we have the exceeds expectation, which is like an A++. That's one way to put it. I'll give you an example here. Under Part 1, Bias Sources. In the exceeds expectations column, it says, exceeds expectations in an exceptionally clear, insightful, sophisticated, or creative manner. We're talking about high quality, exceptional work to get this rank. Um, Not many people will reach this level. It's asking where it's beyond just meeting the basic expectations of the assignment, it's going above and beyond in the quality of the entire assignment in this particular criteria. So usually it's going to continue the same phrasing. Um, Go back to the meets expectation criteria for specifics, and then it may be helpful to also review the needs improvement or partially meets expectations column as well to see which of these describes this assignment that I'm about to turn in. Am I not meeting full expectations? Am I only partially meeting them? Am I meeting them? Or am I actually exceeding them? I hope that you'll make a goal of at least meeting the expectations and possibly exceeding them. As you'll notice, the criteria in the far left column uh, are the same ones that appear in the description of the assignment under the directions. So those have not changed from the original assignment. However, the addition of the exceeds expectations makes a difference in the total points. Exceeds expectation gets you 100% of the points for that criteria. Meets expectations only gets you 85% of the points, and partially meets only gets 55% of the points eligible or that you're eligible for. So take that into consideration. Push yourself a little bit because this is the culminating assignment for this course. It will impact your overall course grade. Every point counts, so it's important that you take the time to do a complete and effective revision process. All right, you'll submit this one in the same way that you submit all assignments. Again, a reminder that this assignment needs to be a single document, parts 1 and 2 in that document, that it needs to follow the information under the what to submit. Double check that. Remember that there are resources to help you be sure that you have formatted correctly for APA. Um, Again, I have referenced things in the grading feedback to help you find the resources that you need to work on what still needs work in your assignments. I'm always available for any kind of feedback or any kind of questions or clarifications that you might need. Let me refer you to one other resource here in the announcement. I'm hoping that by now you have looked at the academic support tab at the top of our course webpage. Um, you may or may not have done that, but now's the time to be aware that you can get written feedback on your assignments before you turn them in. And that's especially important for this final assignment because it's your last chance to have somebody else, a second set of eyes, look at your work to double check to make sure that it's meeting the assignment requirements, that it's the best writing that it can be, that it's doing everything that it should be doing for a persuasive essay supported by research. There is a link to a video here in the announcement that goes over step by step how to submit your work for feedback to academic support, and they will give you written feedback on your submission. There's a 12-hour turnaround time from the time that you submit it. 12 hours later, you should have it back, but you should try to submit as early in the week as possible. This is the last module, the last or the most. I'm sorry. Let me change that. Most of the final projects in courses at Southern New Hampshire are due this week. That means that the academic support people are very busy. So the earlier in the week you can get your revisions done and submit that to them, the earlier you're going to get your feedback from them returned, giving you additional time to do final revisions before you have to submit it by the midnight Sunday deadline. The same is true if you're asking me questions. Try to do it as early in the week as possible so that we have plenty of time for me to respond and then for you to do any additional revising that needs to be done. Some of you may need to do additional work in the library, and if so, I can't encourage you enough to work with a librarian. There is contact information available if you click on Shapiro Library at the top of our course webpage. Their homepage has contact information. They will also be busy this week, so you want to do this as early in the week as you can. Again, a final reminder that you need to focus on large-scale revisions. Those are the things that earn the most points. They're the things that make the most difference in whether or not your persuasive essay supported by research is effective. You can have all your commas in the right places, but if you don't have an effective thesis statement, if you're not using effective topic sentences, you're still not going to meet or exceed expectations. It's more important to spend the time and energy on the large scale issues before you ever even look at small things like grammar and proofreading. Again, a final reminder that general questions discussion is always available for general questions that you might have about the assignment. If you have specific questions, be sure that you tell me exactly what it is you need help with, exactly what it is you're not understanding. Where does that information appear? If you don't understand one of my grading feedback revision suggestions, quote it so that we both are on the same page about what it is you need extra help with. If you need clarification, if you're not sure what I'm referring to, those are the kinds of questions that I'm more than willing to help you with. Okay, that's all I've got for this week.